Okay. Good morning, everyone, or good evening, whenever you're watching this. Thank God we're alive, and thank God we're here, and thank God we can see or hear, and we can learn, and we can prove ourselves and prove the world. So now we're learning from this book, which is called Likuti Torah. We're continuing learning, written by the first Rebbe of Chabad. That the seventh Rebbe of Chabad said that learning this is for sure going to bring Moshiach a little bit sooner. Hopefully, it'll bring Moshiach now. This book, Likuti Torah and Torah, or both of them are written by the first Rebbe of Chabad. So this is a discourse. Originally, it was a speech, and it was put into the essay form by the Rebbe's son, his grandson, and put into this very big, thick book. It's got a few thousand pages in it, called Likuti Torah. Now we're learning about the month of Elul. What's going on in the month of Elul? So as we said several times, so many times before, that the purpose of the Torah is to make us feel bad and to make us feel good. It makes us feel bad because we see how much there's left to do, how much God trusts us and entrusts us with this tremendous responsibility. But it makes us feel good because, first of all, we have responsibility, which that makes a person feel good, right? You get fired from your job, you feel terrible. We always have a job, we'll never get fired. And God also empowers us to do this. And he's always in the cheer, helping us, cheering for us, helping us on. So on one hand, we're always supposed to feel a little bit crushed because we're supposed to bring the redemption, accept the whole world. And we're not, we see the world is in pretty bad shape. But on the other hand, we know we have this job to do, and any second it can just flip around, the whole thing can flip around because God is helping us. Okay, it's not so easy to see this from the Torah, learning the Torah or the Talmud, but Chassidut, one of the intended goals of this Hasidic teachings, especially of Chabad, is not to let us forget it, not to let us forget our responsibility and our ability to fix up the whole world. One person to fix up the whole world. So we should feel terrible that we have not done it up to now, because it's all our responsibility. But on the other hand, we should feel great that we can do it. And it's just waiting for us to be done. One more good deed, one more good word, even one more good thought. We have no way of knowing, what exactly it is that's going to tilt the scales. But meanwhile, we're doing what we can. So let's go. So we learned yesterday that there's that in addition to the fact that everything in the world has a meaning to it, but especially things that are in the Torah have meaning to them. And they, remind us of our responsibility to fix the world up and to activate ourselves and the world around us. That's what Jews are. We're chosen people. God chose us to fix the world up. So we have the month of Elul, right? The Jewish calendar is really a reminder because there are three general, categories of creation. There's a lot of categories of creation, right? There's 10 sefirot, there's 613 commandments. But there's another one, and there's three, and that is what's called Olam Shana Nefesh. Place, spirit, and time. Not in that order. Olam is place, Shana is time, and Nefesh is spirit, life, soul. So we can learn from everything. Every place, every detail of the world, physical world, every aspect of our soul, and also every aspect of time. And here we have every day of the week, every date of the week, every day, every date of the month, date of the year. And here we have the whole month. The whole month of Elul is the month of love. And it's symbolized by Ani Ladodi Vadodi. It's a sentence in the Song of Songs by King Solomon. I am to my beloved, and my beloved is to me. God loves us, and we love him. Who starts? The month of Elul says we start. Ani ladodi, I go to my beloved, and my beloved reacts and comes to me. We start. So the Rebbe reminds us that, okay, maybe we start. The month of Elul hints at how we start, but the fact is God always starts. I mean, God creates us, so he's can't get a bigger start than that. And not only that, God not only creates us, but he inspires us. God creates us. He also creates our Yetzer Hora, what's called. God creates our negative character traits. God creates everything. This is a thief. Before he goes to steal, it says in the Talmud, in An Yaakov, it says a thief, a Jewish thief, before he goes to steal, maybe non-Jewish thieves also, I don't know any of them personally. Jewish thief, before he goes to steal, he prays to God for success. What's he praying to God for success for? Because who made him a thief? God made him a thief. Who gave him the qualities? Not everybody can be a thief. To be a thief, you have to have courage. You have to remember. You have to be quiet. You have to, right? You have to perseverance. It says there's 7 things you can learn from a thief. My teacher, one of my teachers, Rabbi Mendel Futterfass, said that he sat in Siberia, Rabbi Mendel Futterfass, for like 7 years. He said, the fact is you can learn thousands of things from a thief. He was there from a thief. Not everybody can be a thief. To be a thief, it's a gift from God. It's a gift. You have your free will either to give into that and to, or not. But the fact is, it's a gift from God. So a thief, before he goes to steal, he thanks God for his powers to be a thief. But he prays to God that he doesn't let God down. God gave him these powers to be a thief. He wants to be a good thief. It's against the Torah. It's against, okay, that's a small detail. It's against the Torah. So just the fact that God created us doesn't necessarily send us any messages about what to do with that creation. But the month of Elul does. The month of Elul, and especially the month that comes after it, which is the month of judgment, it's called the days of awe, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, when we're judged. So that sends us a message that God creates us, and he gives us the power to steal and to cheat, whatever we want. And then he judges us if we use it or not, right? Doesn't seem very fair to me, but to God it's fair. God knows what he's doing. I don't know what he's doing. If it was up to me, I wouldn't create the world. I probably wouldn't even create me, the fact is. So God knows what he's doing. So the month of Elul is the month that we make the decision that we are going to serve God. But how do we get that decision? So we learned that there's a lot of forces in play here that help us out. And one is that God himself makes himself more available. It's like a king that comes into the field to encourage the people to serve him. He comes into the field. There's people that don't know that there's a king. There are people that deny there is such a thing as the king. Maybe there's no king. Maybe it's just a big fake. Maybe they're just pretending fake, like the corona and this stuff, you know. Maybe there's a little king. Like, yeah, corona was there. It was a little bit. You know, maybe so the king himself comes out into the field and everybody sees, wow, here it is the king. But when he comes out into the field, he's not exactly royal. First of all, he left the palace. Second of all, he's not necessarily dressed in his finest garb. And he hasn't got all of his thousands of soldiers around him, everything. He meets everybody. Anyone who wants to can come to the king. That's what it says. Same thing the month of Elul. God is in the field. The 13 attributes of mercy are accessible to us. Okay, let's say, for instance, you visit Sweden. Everybody says, hey, the king is in the field. So you say, okay, very nice. Want to come and see the king? Sure. You go and you see the king. You see a guy walking around the field. Maybe he's got a sort of a royal, got a little sign, I'm the king. But he's not your king. He's the king of Spain. He's the king of whatever it is of Sweden. So he's walking on the street. Good, it's very nice, but he's not my king. You're not very impressed by him. You don't even look at him very closely. Good, okay. What in the world is he doing in the field? A king? What type of king is it? But if it's your king, it's your king. And you heard all sorts of wonderful stories about this king. You heard some things that are sort of not nice also, right? There's a lot of Holocaust, a lot of famines, a lot of not good things that happen in the world. But on the other hand, God creates everybody. He enlivens everybody. He feeds everybody. Once in a while, there's a war, a Holocaust where God makes things, but the rest of the time, we have this precious thing called life. We have a precious thing called health, right? That God gives us to us. So don't think only when the bad things, when God takes good. So we hear all these things that God does, but on the other hand, you think, who says it's God? Maybe it's just nature. And then at the month of Elul, God is in the field. What does it mean God is in the field? God is more accessible to everybody. That's why one of the reasons why every day after the prayers, we sound the shofar to announce that the king is in the field, even though that the king is not so royal, but nevertheless he's there. What is the king here? The Rebbe says is the 13 attributes of mercy. Why should we be impressed by the king? Because the 13 attributes of mercy is inside of us also. In fact, that's the dominant force inside of us. In fact, that's our very essence identity. The first of the 13 attributes of mercy is the name Kael, El. One of God's names is El. Remember, we learned yesterday, if you were in the 3 o'clock class, it's never too late, you can look it up, that El is one of the names you're not allowed to wipe out. You're not allowed to erase. Right? You're not allowed to erase any one of God's names. El is one of the names. We usually don't say, you say Kael, but if I say Kael, nobody will know what I'm talking about. The name El, Aleph Lamed, and that's dominant in the Jewish people. El is Yisra El, and the Rebbe explains Yisar means it constantly rules, and a Jew, Sar means to rule. This aspect of El, the essence of the Jew, is this name of El, and that's the essence of the 13 attributes of mercy, and that's what shines in the month of Elul. It reminds us, you are a Jew. And Jews are chosen, and Jews are the sons of God, and Jews are the servants of God. And Jews are the wife of God. Got married at Mount Sinai. And we're the soldiers of God, Tzibot Hashem, when we left Egypt. When we became servants of God at Mount Sinai. Suddenly, that's this name, Kael, that's inside of us. This wakes up. So who starts on the month of Elul, right? The month of Elul is how we start. But the fact doesn't matter. We're not starting this. There's all this preface that's going beforehand, right? All these preparations that are happening before. It's like when the race starts, before the automobile race or whatever it starts. So, right, that's the beginning. Take off. But the fact is, before that, there was all this practice and all this building and all this working and all this planning. So Elul is when everything starts. We start to serve God. But before that, there was all this planning. And all the time of Elul, there's also God is coming down and helping us. And we have this name of God inside of us. And we have to just wake it up. That's what it means, that you are sons of God. A son is like the leg of his father. Karua da'avua. Namely, that a son, is included in the will of his father without any logic, just like a foot, right? You want to move your foot, right? You want to move your foot. You want to put on your shoes. You want to put on your foot. Somebody comes and says, hey, why did your foot just move? He says, what do you mean? My foot just moved because I wanted to move it. He says, just because you want to move it, it means it has to move. Here, I want your foot to move. Your foot doesn't move. Here, look, I'm thinking about, I want your foot to move. It doesn't move. Why doesn't it move? It says, because it's not your foot. You're thinking about my foot. When I think about my foot means it moves. When you think about my foot, it doesn't move. The person said, why is that? That doesn't make any sense. I mean, if willpower moves your foot. So he explained to him all of the anatomy and the nervous system and the spine, how everything works. And he says, yeah, but it still doesn't make any sense. I mean, that's all physical things, but will is a human thing. Why is your willpower move your foot? And my willpower does not move your foot. Why? right? Your foot moves automatically as soon as you want to. So if you start thinking about it too much, you could go crazy. And if you think about it really a lot, you won't even be able to walk. You won't be able to move your foot. Because the fact is the fact that your feet move as soon as you want them to is a pretty amazing thing. It moves automatically. And that's what every Jew is. Every Jew is like the foot of God. A son is like the leg of his father. He has an internal connection. That's this name Kael, which is inside of every single Jew. This name El, which rules over every Jew, but we don't know it. So we just have to wake it up, our true identity. God is trying to wake it up on Elul. That's what it means. That's what it means. Negate your will in front of God's will, and then in order that it can shine to a person, this inner will of God is available in order for it to actually shine and be accepted. So first of all, you have to do something first. Hey, so we're doing it first, not God. He says, no, God makes himself available, and that arouses us a little bit. And then we have to arouse God more. I don't remember if I told you this story, but I'm going to tell you the story anyway. It could be that every day I tell you the story. Sometimes I forget things. Anyway, it's a good story. Every month I go and I put tefillin. Every week, every Friday, I go to this big marketplace in Tel Aviv, and I put up a little stand. And I have tefillin, and I put tefillin on people. So I asked. So on the month of Elul, you sound the shofar every day. So I bring a shofar down there on Friday, and I sound the shofar. Now there's also big restaurants over there, and you sound the shofar. It sort of catches everybody's attention for a couple of minutes, a couple of seconds. So it's not nice for me to disturb the people that are in the restaurants and around. So I sound the shofar once, like every 15 minutes or something like that, 10, 20 minutes. So comes up a guy, and I sound the shofar, and a person comes up to me, and he says, "Oh, would you sound the shofar again?" So I said, "No, listen, I just sounded the shofar. You must have heard it." He said, "Yeah, but I was doing other things, and I just caught it at the end. Do me a favor. When you sound the shofar, you go, doo, 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 doo. Chabad does a little bit more, but that's what I do in the marketplace." So I said, "No, I'm not going to sound the shofar right now. Come back in another 10 minutes, because I can't sound it every 5 minutes. It disturbs the people over here." He said, no, please do it. I said, "Listen, while you're here, put on tefillin." The fellow said, "Oh, I already put on tefillin. I already put the tefillin on. I did it already today. I just want to hear the shofar." So I said, "Listen, go and buy things and come back." I said, "You know what? I'll wait for you to come back. I'll wait. You come back." And I said, no, I already bought everything. I did everything. I just want to hear the shofar." So I saw I couldn't get rid of this guy. So I said, "Okay." So I sounded the shofar. I sounded a little bit less powerfully, but I sounded the shofar. I finished sounding the shofar, and he looks at me and he says, "I didn't put on tefillin." Suddenly it woke up inside of him the truth, right? You hear the shofar woke up something. That's the month of Elul. The month of Elul wakes up inside of us the truth. The king is in the field, our creator, our true identity, our father, the master of the world. He's the king of the universe. He's available, the king of Israel, right? He's in the field. He's available to every one of us, and you can sort of feel it. So all you have to do is leave the city, leave your normal way, and go out into the field. Behold, yesh b'adam, there is in a person inside of us, bechinet ir moshav, a settled city. That's like our day-to-day, regular, normal human life, right? Civilized, orderly life. And there's also what's called a field inside of each one of us. A field is like going outside of our normal way of. Then there's midbar. Then there's what's called a desert. A desert is a place you don't want to go. You don't want to be found in the desert. A desert, Eretz, is a place, excuse me, one moment. Midbar, a desert, Eretz is a land, lo zerua, that you can't cultivate. What is this inside of us? This is a maisin, the deeds, diburim, speech, machshavos, and thoughts, asher lo laHashem hemo, that they're not directed to God. Barren. There's no life. Ein sorech lomar, and it goes without saying, in pagam b'machshava, if you did something against God, thought, spoke, did deeds which are against the Torah, ela afilu gam inyane hayeter, even permissible things, rak shem inyanim she'enim tzarichim la'avodat Hashem. These are things that have no connection to serving God. Udvorim b'teilim, and simply, how do you say, empty words. You talk about the baseball game, you talk about this, sports, music, whatever. Hare, behold, no, what's wrong with that? It says, there's nothing wrong with it, but there's nothing right about it. I gave the example before. It's like you take your car to get it fixed. Something that gut doesn't work, the clutch doesn't work, whatever. Distributor, you come back after a week, you say, well, did you finish the car? No, I didn't even work on it. He says, what? You didn't even work on the car? It's been here for a week. He says, listen, look at the upside. I didn't do anything bad. I didn't wreck your car. He says, but I gave it to you to work on. You're supposed to work on the car. He says, okay, so I didn't work, but on the other hand, I didn't wreck anything. God put us here in the world to put meaning into the world, to put holiness into the world, to put blessing into the world. We can't just say, okay, listen, I didn't maybe bring blessing, I didn't do it, but I didn't do bad things either. You know, I ate, I talked, there's nothing wrong with talking about, you know, the baseball game, about sports, about music, about politics, nothing wrong about that. So yeah, but you're not here just not to do wrong things. You're here to do right things. This is, if you, the time that you spend that has nothing to do whatsoever with God and His Torah, that's called desert. Allah orcha, because it's not the way of the king, l'shtai, to speak b'mili dehedyuta, in regular things. Right? You go up to the king, and yes, you would like to say to me, what'd you think about the basketball game yesterday, Your Majesty? Listen, I'm ruling this whole country. I have the whole country on my mind. I think about every single citizen of the country. We have enemies all over the place. I'm not here to talk about your basketball game. You know, okay, well, you know, what do you think? You have any tips about gardening? You know, about what are you doing? It's not the way of a king to say mundane things. The same thing, we're always standing in front of the king. So we should always have something, at least in some way, that's connected, and not to fool ourselves, of course, that's connected to king. We eat in order to be a better person, in order to be a more honest person, a happier person, etc. Everything that we do should be in order somehow or other to improve the world according to the Torah. A good thought, a good deed, a good... But what if we don't? If we don't, then we have joined 99.99999% of the Jews. We have time, right? There are people that are tzaddikim, that they're always thinking, speaking, talking, holiness. Ideally, that's what the Benoni is, that he's always talking, he's saying and thinking and doing godly things, Jewish things, and he's resisting his, that's the whole Tanya is about. Nevertheless, if you give in to your natural urges and you just sort of, you know, how do you say, let it go. Let it go. You're not doing anything bad, nothing good. This is called a desert. This is a place where there's no man. What does it mean, man? Man is talking about al damut akise damut kumari adam. Isaiah saw a vision, and he said that on the what's it called? Ezekiel saw a vision also. It says, on the throne was the throne of the appearance of a man. It says the throne, that's talking about the world of Bria. Adam is talking about the world of Atzilut, godliness. What he saw, I have no idea, but that's Atzilut is another name for holiness. A A desert is a place where man cannot dwell. What does it mean, cannot dwell? That's all the thought, speech, and action that we do, which has nothing to do with God. It's not making a dwelling. You're supposed to sanctify yourself, make yourself holy with ideas of Torah. And when you do that, then God says, I will dwell among you. But if you don't make yourself holy, you don't deal anything with godliness or Judaism or Torah or honesty or whatever in any way, then that's a desert. Pretty easy to make a desert. How do we get out of it? We're supposed to make ourselves into a holy temple. How do we do that? And one of the reasons the temples were destroyed because the Jews simply didn't make themselves into a holy temple. Eitza Ya'utza, the advice which is given for this is, Hine Kativ, it is written, Ubekashta Misham et Hashem Elokecha. Says that if you sin, Jewish people, if they sin, so they should request from there your God. What does it mean from there? From the sins themselves. We'll see. We'll see. Perush ki hine kasiv. It says vayar Elokim asa or kitov. That God, when He created the world, on the first day, He saw the light and it was good. Perush. What does it mean that it was good? It was good to conceal. That God, this level of light, which was a ray of the inside of God's will, there's inside of each and every Jew. That's this letter Kale we said before, this letter of Ale. Ella, but it's concealed. And it's very hidden. Betivo in its nature. That's the way God made it. So tremendously good and high and pure and true that that's the job, is to reveal, like diamonds that are under the earth. Why God put them under the earth? Why didn't He just put them on the ground? Right? You should have put the bad things under the earth and the good things on the top. No, put the good things, the diamonds are deep under the earth. Same thing as the Jewish essence of the Jewish soul, it's concealed. But Tzarech Lagalos, you have to reveal, you have to dig and reveal this treasure house of the fear of God. Fear of God. Why is fear of God a good thing? Like you find the diamond, right? Let's say you're digging it down, you find a diamond. You find the diamond, right? You look at things, wow, this thing is worth $100 million. What's the first thing that you have? Fear. Fear. $100 million. You look at this thing, wow, I hope nobody saw me. This thing is precious beyond belief. The same thing, God. A person, when he reveals God, reveals, wow, God is precious beyond belief. I hope I don't do anything to mar this value, to disrespect this precious stone that I found. You found godliness, it's precious beyond value. That's called the fear of God. Such a precious thing, you don't want to do anything to scratch, mar. This is inside of every Jew. Some people, this point of light inside of them. Here before we called the name Kale. Ale. The Yisrael, the Ale inside of Yisrael is lost by them in gullus, in exile. Lost. They don't know they're Jews. Their parents didn't know they were Jews. Al-Zin, Emar, and it says, them that you have to search. Shetavakesh, Betach you have to search and you have to, how do you say another word? Must be a better word for search. Not investigate. Okay, whatever. Make up a word. You have to dig and search. It says you only search for something that you lost. Something that's lost by him. Gullus in exile. How do you even know you have such a thing if it's lost? The Rebbe is telling us. The Rebbe is telling us you're a Jew, right? Your mother was a Jew. You're a Jew. Your father was a Jew. You're not a Jew. Your mother was a Jew. You're a Jew. What in the world could this possibly have a connection that because your mother was Jewish, so you have the spark of godliness inside? That's the way God decided. Right? That's the way He decided. Makes no sense. You ever see sometimes they have these things? I watched it a couple times, pawn show. There's also, I remember I was in New York. They have these antique guitars, right? You go into a guitar. This is a guitar that who knows, Schmerl Beryl, he played it in the festival in Newark Festival in 1935. What? I don't believe you really, this is a genuine Fender guitar that was played by this person. Yes, it is. The thing is worth, you know how much the thing is worth? Maybe $500 million. $500 million for this guitar. Right? Somebody come bring an expert and says, 1 second. If it was, then the numbers on it would be 147, and this is 148. This guitar is worth maybe $200. What? But just because a little number, that makes the big difference. That's the way it goes. The same thing with a Jew. Your mother was Jewish. You're a Jew. Makes sense? Doesn't make any sense. But that's what it is. That's the way God set up the world. The fact that your mother's Jewish, that's just a sign that God put on the outside of it. Like this guitar, it's a sign that this thing was played by Schmerl Beryl, whoever it was. What is this that you're a Jew? What does it mean? It's tremendously deep. Huh? Just like the story that I just told you. It has a little number on the top of it instead of 147 as 145. But that means that the thing is worth $500 million, this guitar. Did it change the strings? Did it change the wood? Did it change the this? Nothing changed. It just was owned by this person. It's connected to him. The same thing. A Jew has this sign. He was born with a Jewish mother, or he converted according to Jewish law. So it's a sign he's connected to the essence of God. Connected to the essence of God. Really, wow, that's amazing. Did you know that? He says, I don't know it and I don't care. That's what's called, it's lost by him. It's an exile. The spark of godliness inside. Right? There's a lot of people, they find out that they're Jews. What do I care? Leave me alone. It makes no difference to me if I'm a Jew. I'm a human being. And that's the main thing. But little by little, it works on him. And little by little, it starts to seep in. Or somebody says, you dirty Jew. What are you talking about? Why am I a Jew? Right? Yeah, I remember that rabbi said I was a Jew. Why was he hate me? Because of something like that happened to me, basically. That's how I became religious. Something that's all a big, long story. Nevertheless, some people have this spark of godliness inside of them. It's lost. That's like being in the desert. And how do you get out of the desert? You have to search. You have to search. You have to, must be a better word. Oh, I'll think about it later. I have a thesaurus over. I'll look it up. That's what it means. As Hashem Elokecha, you have to look for God. This comes from the name of Elohecha, from the name of Kael, that we said before, the name of El, which is in Yisrael, which is inside of every single Jew. Lachayos nefesh elokis, to enliven the godly soul of the Jew, which the godly soul of the Jew is a certainty that God exists and a feeling of tremendous responsibility and connection to God that's inside of every single Jew. But that's what it says. Omer bikashta misham. That's what it means. You have to search for this godly soul, this godly spark, the spark of life and inspiration, the spark of Judaism. You have to search. Where do you search? Misham, from there. What is from there? From the place where you did the sins. Misham daichachi, misham iefshar lechapes kashem, just like it's impossible to look for something that you lost and find it except for the place where you lost it. Kach lo yasig, or you can't get the light of God, and you should love God until and feel his face of God until you search for God first in the place where you lost it. What do you mean the place where you lost it? Just one moment here. Where did you lose the spark of Judaism? Where did you lose this? Where did you lose it? You lost it in your reality, in what you think is real. Like it says, like it says, let us sift through and look through our past deeds. That he has to sift through and look, examine all of his deeds, his words, his thoughts, sha'avru, that passed over from the day that he was born. Asher lo tovim, that they're not good. V'zeu bikashta misham. Why would you do things that are not good? Because why not? Why shouldn't I do what I want? What's the problem? I don't understand. Why can't I just do what I want to do? Huh? Says the reason is because that's not really what you want to do. You have two eyes, two selves. There's one self, which is the natural self. That's what the Tanya tells us. There's another self, which is called the godly self. We're talking about Jews here. As long as you feel your natural, normal, everyday, worldly self, as you're missing your true identity. You can identify with this normal self and you can feel great. You can be a rock and roll star. You can get all the pleasures of the world and all the successes, and people are patting you on the back and they want you're in the what you call, you're in the autograph, and you have a whole 15 Lamborghinis or Bugatti, whatever it is, cars and a mansion and all these things. But that's not the real you. There's nothing wrong with all these things, but all these things, they don't have you. You don't really, the true you doesn't really own these things. They own you. Right? You go outside in the morning and somebody scratched one of your cars, you go berserk. Why? It's my car, it's me. On the other hand, if you wake up your godly soul, you think to yourself, one second, would I really need 16 Lamborghinis? I mean, each one of these things costs like $500,000 or whatever. Right? $500,000, they cost $5 million. I can take 15 of these things and sell them and give the money to charity. I'll find good. That's what God wants me to do. But if I do that, then I won't have 16 Lamborghinis. What am I going to do? So you have to look and you find the reason that people do sins is because they like it. They want to. They don't think there's any alternative. Or because they like it, or because they think that they don't like it, but they think there's no other alternative. But the fact is that when I do a sin, I'm doing it. It's me doing it. And that's not the real me. I'm fooling myself. So you have to search back into that false me that you've got. That's what it means, Misham. In other words, in simple American, it means you have to get real. You have to get real. As long as Judaism is a religion and you're doing it and you're forcing yourself to do it, right? So, okay, it's better than doing sins, that's for sure. But there has to be some point where you really, truly, deeply want to force yourself, and that you get some sort of pleasure from forcing yourself to do what God wants or to avoid what God doesn't want. That's called eskafia and esapcha. We'll talk about that another time. But nevertheless, you want to fix yourself up to transform yourself from a desert to be a city, or at least to be a field where the king is. So you have to work on yourself, and you have to work on the reason that you did things against God in the first place. When you say zeh, who davar sheyochel mamash lirotet, you can see. You can point with your finger. It's like it says, Asher Yomar ki hu zeh, that this is it. Right? You lose something, it says, you point to it, this is the thing I lost. You can't say that. Really, the only thing that really exists, that's really you're sure is there, that never changes, and that's really yours, is God. Like it says, by a Jew. Because really there's nothing except for God. God is creating everything. God is the only real reality. All those Lamborghinis you have, or whatever they are, Ferraris that you've got, really they're just manifestations of God. That's all they are. And you have to look at yourself and think, am I doing with these things what the Creator wants me to do? But the place which is of the klippas of bad, of evil, that's called sham. It's not called zeh. Right in front of me, it's called somewhere else. Very, very deep below. That's what the rabbis say. Karu Sham Paro. It says that Paro, it's one of the prophets. What is it? I don't remember from who, Zachariah or something. That Karu Sham Paro Moed. It says that Paro Sham He'evir Moed. There is He'evir Moed. Make a holiday. What does it mean? Haderech Shel Moed V'Simcha. And the way of happiness and joy, He'evir L'Simcha Shel Halos. It can bring a person to the joy and the happiness of the other side. That's the whole thing of the desert. Yitamu, right? They used to have these. It says that Rabbi Akiva, he was somehow or other in Rome, and he heard the sound of the people. This is after the destruction of the temple, or maybe he was passing by Yerushalayim. Anyway, he heard the non-Jews with their bacchanals and their rave parties or whatever they did back then. It's not a new thing. And they were all laughing and happy, and there were gales of laughter and all this. And it said that Rabbi Akiva was walking with two other rabbis, and they wept. And Rabbi Akiva laughed, and they said, "Why are you laughing?" He said, "Why are you crying?" He said, "We're crying because look, the Jews are suffering, and look what the non-Jews, they're so happy, they're enjoying themselves. They can't go to sleep. They're so happy, right? They party 24/7, right? And they're happy, and we're so down." He said, "Why are you smiling?" He said, "Because if God fulfilled that prophecy that the temple would be destroyed and the non-Jews would be happy, as then we know that the prophecy that he said that the Jews are going to rejoice for the third temple, that's also going to be fulfilled. That's why I'm happy." But the fact is right now, you've got your choice. What do you want to make happy? What should make you happy? It should make you happy doing whatever your animal soul wants to do. If so, there's a certain type of happiness in that. Or you want to do what your God, which is a totally different type of happiness, that by means of Dibri Osis, by speaking the words of prayer, that's Midaber. I'm sorry, that's what it says. The Midbar is Yitamu. It says, in this desert, this is after they sinned with the spies. It says, in this desert, you will be finished. Right? It says you're going to wander for 40 years. But there's a good side. What does it mean? Midbar is desert, but it also means midaber, to speak. Dibre osos at tefillah, when a person says the words of prayer, which is midaber, midbar hazeh, like it says, zeh keli. Zeh, we said midbar hazeh, not sham, not over there. How do you get out of your lower self, of all the stupid mistakes you made and you want to keep making? It says by means of prayer, saying the words of prayer, making your own prayers up. Pray to God, help me. Also learning Torah, like it says, Parshas Matos, Lemor, Zeh Davar, the thing of Torah is to speak. Yitamu, what does it mean? Like it says in the Zohar, Shalach, talks about the spies. Shehu bechinas tamim tiyeh Yitamu, the curse that Moses gave to the Jewish people when they didn't want to go into the land of Israel. So they said, you want to stay in the desert? So you'll stay in the desert, and here will be finished. You're here, you're going to die. Tamu. But there's also a good side of Yitamu. What does it mean? Tamu tiyeh, tamim tiyeh. You'll be wholesome. What do you mean you will die? That's in the Nefilat Apayim, right? The prayer that we make where we give ourselves over totally to God after the Shemon Esrei. Raising up the sparks that have felt there, Elech Hashem Nafshi Asa, raising up your soul. Shu Allah and Nitzutzas Shenaflu, that these are the sparks of life, of energy that fell into these bad things that I did or that I said or that I thought in the past. How do you fix up a terrible past? How do you fix up your sins? Make a new future. Ask God for forgiveness. Say words of Torah. If you're a non-Jew, ask God for forgiveness. Read Psalms, whatever. If you're a Jew, read the Torah. Say words of Torah, of prayer. That's what it means. I lift my soul up to you. That's what it means. Otanu, Misham, you took us out, because God really took us out of Misham, from this place called Sham over there, to cling to God. The Rebbe is now going to say, and we'll talk about this. Well, we'll do this tomorrow. Tomorrow is Friday, right? Friday. So we'll continue this tomorrow. In any case, we can also do it next week. We'll see. The Rebbe is going to say that this is talking about a person that's wholesome. He just has to change his direction a little bit. But sometimes it gets much deeper. The sins and the mistakes that you made in the past, so then it's not good enough just to speak and to pray and to say words of Torah. Then you have to get bitter. You have to get very bitter. and that will return back. And sometimes it's even worse. In some cases, then you really have to just really return yourself back to God. God willing, we'll learn this tomorrow. Now let's do the Devar Malchut.